Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about a new film, believe it or not, in 2020 that's very hard to say. I'm going to be talking about a documentary film called Be Water. This is a documentary about the life and the cultural impact of Bruce Lee. It premiered last night on ESPN. It's also now available on their streaming service, ESPN Plus. This film premiered back at a film festival back in January of 2020, and tonight here on June 7th, 2020, ESPN showed the film on their 30 on 30 special, I think is what it's called. And so now it is available like in all the other 30 on 30 episodes that they have on ESPN Plus for those who missed out on this documentary tonight. But overall, this documentary film, Be Water, you guys, it is about the life, the cultural impact of Bruce Lee when he was around. He only, unfortunately, was 32 years old when he passed away. And like I said, Enter the Dragon is probably one of his most noteworthy films that he did before his passing. And that was kind of the film that made him an international star as a result. Um, but in Be Water, you guys, this film depicts the life, the cultural impact of Bruce Lee. It really does show you kind of all the way back from his really early years as a child actor and kind of how that helped him later on becoming a Hollywood actor as an adult. How he went from San Francisco back to Hong Kong and back to America again. Um, and it showed, obviously his life and meeting Linda Lee Cadwell, wanting to show students of all shapes and sizes martial arts here in America. He was a strong believer in philosophy and living life to the fullest and really showing kind of how beautiful martial arts could be on film. And so Be Water explores all these things about Bruce Lee's life, and it does it over the course of roughly 2 hours. But overall, guys, I really liked Be Water a lot. This is a very well made documentary film that really does show the beauty of Bruce Lee's life, that he really was a teacher, a philosopher, an actor, a martial artist, a stunt coordinator, a father, a husband. He really was kind of all these things while he was only 32 years when he passed away, and how he managed to do all those things over the course of 32 years in the best possible way you could imagine. So, like I said, let's go over some positives and negatives about the overall Be Water documentary. First and foremost, like I said, this is a very well-made documentary. It really does show everything. It really does show kind of the life of Bruce Lee, his cultural impact, how he's passed away, but it still feels like he's alive today because um, of just how much people talk about him and think about him, and how much he inspired people, and how much work he's left behind on film and martial arts and philosophy, and how there's things that he's taught people over the years that really kind of shows the balance of life and how to go about life and things of that nature. And so this film depicts all those things in a very strong manner. The film also does depict his philosophy and cultural impact, like I just mentioned. Um, it really does show that it really feels like he's still alive today, even though he isn't. And I think that just shows just how much his spirit's alive, how everybody's really making it feel like he's still with us, and his teachings weren't forgotten and things like that. So the film does a very good job of depicting all these philosophy lessons and all this cultural stuff that is still around to this day that Bruce has taught us. There's tons of interesting facts about Bruce that you learn throughout the Be Water documentary as well that even I myself didn't know about him. And I've seen, the Dragon, the Bruce Lee story film. I've read a couple of books about Bruce and things like that. And there's still things in this documentary, like I said, that I had no clue about Bruce. I did have no idea that his paychecks for Green Hornet were really nothing special. So let's say Van Williams got $200 an episode. Bruce Lee would only get $90 an episode. And once again, that was strictly because he was a Chinese man in the 60s, and his race, unfortunately, was not very well respected in the American culture and film yet. And so Bruce had to deal with all that kind of stuff all the time. There was tons of projects that did come his way that he ultimately turned down just because it was just either disrespectful to his culture, or it was just something Bruce could not see himself playing. And so, as a result, though, because he was more pickier on projects, he was able to choose things like the Green Hornet and eventually Enter the Dragon, and be able to go over to Hong Kong again and work on films and direct films and things like that. So there was good that came out of it, but as a result, he was constantly turning down stuff because there was constantly stuff coming his way that ultimately would either disgrace himself or disgrace his culture, and Bruce did not want anything to do with that at all. So the film goes over that in a very respectful manner. The film also uses a lot of home footage and Hollywood footage of Bruce. So whether it's Lee Cadwell recording him teaching a student at his home, or Hollywood footage of Bruce attending a premiere, or Bruce on the set of one of his films. They show all this stuff over the course of the film, and it really does show you how human Bruce was and how amazing Bruce was and how inspiring he was to everybody. And I think the use of both types of footage really helped this documentary quite a bit, showing both the professional and the private life of Bruce very, very well. The film also has a lot of celebrities and family members that share memories about Bruce Lee. There's just so many things like that Shannon was sharing about him, how she was just a little girl, but she remembered being around Bruce and could really feel the cultural impact that Bruce had with everybody, and that his philosophy lessons were really kind of universal, that you didn't have to study martial arts to get what Bruce was trying to teach you, or you didn't have to like martial art movies to kind of understand what was just so unique about him, how he was an actor, he was your stunt actor, your stunt coordinator, he was the director, he was the writer, he really was kind of everything on set. And to this day, that's a very rare thing to find in a person. And so the film does show you kind of how all these celebrities and all these family members of Bruce are trying to keep that alive as best as possible, because Bruce really had this ability to really make you feel better as a person while you were with him. For my negatives of Be Water, though, unfortunately, most of this documentary is entirely done on voiceover. So it's mostly a lot of either, like I said, footage of home footage or Hollywood footage or old photographs that people have found of Bruce over the years. And it's mostly just voiceover playing over all that. So if you're hoping to see a modern day like Lee Cadwell or modern day Shannon Lee, unfortunately they don't really show that until towards the end of the movie, and it's not really their voiceover. It's just mostly just something that they were doing around the time that this documentary was filmed and things like that. So most of it's done in voiceover. It would have been kind of cool if some of it could have been filmed in the studio of the modern day Shannon Lee, modern day Lee Cadwell, modern day students of Bruce that are still alive. But unfortunately, almost all of it's done in voiceover, over photographs and footage of Bruce. I also thought this documentary would have benefited from a more chronological structure. There's just, because they go back and forth a lot with Bruce's life, like childhood, modern day, Hollywood productions, childhood. So they do that a lot with this movie. I think this film just would have benefited from a chronological structure. Show Bruce's early years, show Bruce as a teenager, show Bruce as an adult, show Bruce going into professional film production and things like that. Unfortunately, the film decides to kind of pick and choose where it's going to go, and they kind of do it without warning too. So unfortunately, there's not much of a chronological structure to this documentary. Another thing that this documentary did, I think this could have done better with, is they show a lot of like things that were going on in the U.S. at the time, like racism and stuff like that. How the Chinese were referenced always as like the people building the railroads and things like that. But one thing that this film didn't do very much is maybe a little couple snippets here and there, but they didn't really show Bruce's impact with the whole thing. They didn't show Bruce's opinion. They didn't show the living family members and the living celebrities that knew Bruce. They didn't really talk about how Bruce felt about all that. And so it's one thing where they're like, okay, here's all this thing happening in the U.S. We're not going to share anything about how Bruce feels about any of that, but here's all this thing going on in the U.S. And then they go back to, obviously, where Bruce is at in life and things like that. So that's one part of this documentary I thought they could have done a better job with. You tell us about the railroads and things like that, but tell us how Bruce feels about it. Was Bruce really bothered by that? Was Bruce just kind of like, that's just how things were? Or how did Bruce feel about that? And unfortunately, this documentary never really covers those kind of things very well, unfortunately. But overall, I'm going to give Be Water a 9 out of 10. I think it's a very well-made documentary. Like I said, it's well-made. There's interesting facts about Bruce. I had no idea about him until watching this, like his bad checks for Green Hornet, how, Kung Fu was going to star him, but they chose David Carradine instead. The use of home footage, Hollywood footage of Bruce is all used very effectively here. All the memories that the celebrities and family members shared about Bruce were very effective and powerful, and obviously the film depicts his philosophy and cultural impact very well too. But unfortunately, a lot of it is done in voiceover. I really would have preferred a more of a chronological structure to this documentary. And like I said, tell us about what's going on in the U.S. history at the time that Bruce is around, but Also tell us how Bruce feels about that. What was going on in Bruce's life at the time? What was going on in 1965 or 1966 of this time in history you're talking about? And what was Bruce doing in there? How did Bruce feel about that? So there's certain things like that I think this documentary could have done a better job with. But 9 out of 10 for me. It's very well made. If you have ESPN Plus, it's a great title to stream right now. If ESPN ever shows it as a rerun, I totally recommend watching it. Whether it gets a Blu-ray or DVD release down the line, hopefully it will. I don't know if it will or not, but I recommend this documentary regardless. And 9 out of 10 for me, and I highly recommend seeing Be Water, especially if you're a Bruce Lee fan.